Hello everyone, and welcome back to Firebrand Fables. If you're a fan of fantasy, science fiction, and horror, then stick around, because new episodes release once every week. This episode of Eventhrone is the fifth and final part of the story Prologue, so if you haven't listened to part 1 yet, I'd highly recommend you check it out from the beginning first. Before we get started, I'd like to thank Sword Coast Soundscapes for letting me use his ambiance. You can find him on YouTube, Patreon, and Bandcamp, as well as Alex Kenoyer for doing the music, and you can find him on Instagram at AlexKenoyer_. That's AlexKenoyer_. Thanks again for listening. Now let's dive into part 5 of Eventhrone Prologue. Previously on Eventhrone Prologue. Torinn and Minister Baravan swam down to the entrance of the temple. The first room they entered held a multitude of ancient tablets and texts, though many were damaged and in a dialect that Baravan had some difficulty reading. While she took notes and searched the room, a noise broke the silence and put everyone on alert. Torinn swam up to a crack in the wall that seemed to be the source of the sound, then swam off on his own to investigate the room on the other side of the cracked wall. In the corner of the debris-laden room he discovered hid a large, black crystal. When Torinn closed in on it, something blinded and deafened him. The weight of gravity returns like a ton of bricks, dropping onto his back as he's thrust out of the silent dark. In less than a second, he falls through the air and plants face first into a mud puddle, instantly reblinding him. He props himself up on all fours, spitting and gasping for air as he reaches up to claw the muck from his eyes and hits the visor of a helmet instead. Exasperatedly, he rips the helmet off and throws it aside to swipe away the grime. When he finally opens his eyes again, his surroundings are completely unfamiliar to him. He stands in the middle of a hilly plain that's been blackened and reduced to mud. He continues to kneel for a second longer, glancing down to take notice of the full steel plate armor on his body and the longsword on the ground before him. Grabbing the sword and pushing himself up on 2 feet, he stumbles back into something with a soft clank. But before he can turn around to find out what he bumped into, he catches sight of a gaping, lipless maw flying at him. His eyes shoot wide open, every muscle in his body tensing as he throws his sword up to brace. The creature, vaguely humanoid, eyeless, and horned, bites down on the length of his blade with its jagged teeth and violently tugs at it like a wild animal. Filled with adrenaline, Torinn finally starts to register the sounds of the battlefield. When pulling at the sword doesn't work, the creature tilts its head down and pushes against him. The blade starts to cut into the corners of its mouth, but it relentlessly wrestles to stab its horns through his chest plate. With a hard kick to the creature's left knee, its joint crunches backwards and causes it to collapse. Torinn instantly raises his longsword and stabs it down through the deathly pale and leathery skin of the creature's ribcage. When he looks up again, he sees a horde of creatures swarming around him in every direction, each one uniquely monstrous in appearance. Many of them are similarly humanoid to the one that lunged at him, with dozens of eyes, none at all, or any other number of horrifically aberrant mutations. The vast number of others are completely unrecognizable beasts that would seem right at home in the nightmares of a god. A strange light glimmers over the crest of a hill no more than 100 yards away as the horde closes in on Torinn. He feels a rapid series of pats on his shoulder and glances back to see 8 others forming an outward huddle with him. Their faces summon a distant sense of familiarity as he thinks, "It's you. But how can you?" Oh. He turns back to the approaching swarm as the weight of recognition and remembrance fills his chest. When the mob finally reaches them, the battle turns into a blur of steel, bone, magic, and blood. All conscious thought is overtaken by pure instinct and reflex, but they hold their ground. A disk of warm light washes out from the center of their group and solidifies just beyond the reach of their blades. Each monster touched by it rears up in pain, their hides peeling and chipping away as they ignite with motes of yellow and white flame. A voice calls out from behind Torinn. Come on! This spell won't last forever, and I can't cast it again. We have to move! Together they carve through the horde, with the disk of radiant light still surrounding them, and burning their foes. Several of the larger beasts still push through the ring, and try to shrug off the searing pain of the spell, at which point one or more of the warriors steps forward and cuts them down. Those forming the group's perimeter shift positions, stepping forward to block attacks their companions miss, or to lend another blade when one is outmatched by their foe. Once they arrive at the top of the dirt hill, they look out ahead to find the source of the strange light. A crater with steep, charred edges, scattered fires within the basin, and a dark, swirling vortex at its center. From out of the vortex pours a stream of new, horrific creatures. By now, Torinn has become a spectator in his own body, watching his sword arm slice through each foe that pushes through the boundary of the spell more than he is actively swinging it himself. As he and the others approach the crater, visions of the battle return to him. No, wait, stop! He tries to regain control, but his muscles ignore him. The air grows thick with a mist of blood and ash as they inch their way through the endless horde, exhaustion visibly wearing at their strength. Upon reaching the crater's edge, the group stops dead in their tracks. The ground starts to rumble, and the monsters around them halt their relentless onslaught to turn and face the void. 3 massive tentacles erupt from the dark portal, causing a series of violent quakes that loosen the dirt. The black, scaled tentacles writhe slowly, as if acclimating to the air. Hideous sounds fill the air as sneers and what seem to be joyous cries rise from the horde. One of the tentacles swipes through the air, aiming down toward the warriors. Watching himself dive through the air, Torinn lands just outside of the tentacle's path among the charred corpses of other monsters as it crushes everything from the rim of the portal to where the group stood but a moment ago. Flecks of blood and dirt fill the air, flying past his head upon the tentacle's impact. In a daze, he pushes himself up as the first tentacle drags across the ground into the crater, then lifts back into the air and curves like a scorpion tail. By the time he's on his feet again, he notices the disk of light has moved down into the crater. A set of jaws latch onto Torinn's right greave, crimping the steel plating under its force. With a loud scream, the pain snaps his focus back to the horde around him. Alone, he struggles against the resumed onslaught of the horde. He constantly tries to push them away and create an opening to leap after the others, only for a claw to hook a plate of his armor and yank him back from the edge. The ground shakes as tentacles slam down onto the advancing warriors. However, each blow is diverted with a burst of magic. "No! Wake up! Wake up!" he yells, but the words never leave his mind, and nothing happens. With each glimpse, he watches the group push on until finally reaching the portal's edge. One of them produces an item that glows a brilliant yellow and throws it. The object flies through the air, passes between the tentacles, and falls into the vortex. When the device passes through the portal's threshold, a shockwave surges outward, expelling a shrapnel of some kind. The wave flattens everything in its path and kicks up dust. It washes over Torinn as one of the projectiles punctures the right side of his chest plate and digs deep into his flesh. With terrifying speed, the direction of the shockwave then inverts, imploding upon the center of the crater as the portal collapses and consumes everything trapped within the basin. Torinn! Minister Baravan yells through the crevice, her voice garbling slightly in the water. She had watched him disappear into a corner of the room, waited for maybe half a minute, then sensed a surge of magic as her connection to him severed. Now, she quickly turns away from the crevice, waves for the other two to follow her, and swims down the hallway in a panic. When they enter the room, they find Torinn floating face up and slowly sinking to the floor. "Torinn, wake up! Speak to me, come on!" Leah says, lifting him into her arms before his body can touch the floor. She gently pulls one of his eyes open to see that it's rolled back into his skull. She frantically pats him on the cheek, losing her usually calm and professional demeanor as her heart races out of control. Suddenly, Torinn's body jerks and his eyes flutter open. What just... He lifts his head, squinting his eyes until they find the black crystal once again. "Oh, thank the gods," she says with a sigh. Leah follows his gaze to the crystal, then looks back at him, confused. Reconnecting with his mind, she asks, "What happened? Are you all right?" He stares at it for a moment longer, with a blank expression as the recognition sinks in. When finally looking into her eyes, Torinn sees the worry that she's carrying within and uses her telepathic connection to respond. Yeah, I'm okay. I just blacked out for a second." He lies, gently swimming out of her grasp while glancing back at the crystal. Regaining her composure, Minister Baravan says, "You look like you've seen that before. What is it?" She looks the shard up and down, seeing nothing particularly special about it. "A bad memory," he answers in a low and solemn voice. With a sigh, she tells him, "Okay, then why don't we keep our distance, just to be safe? Let's leave it here, finish our search of the temple, and get you back to the ship." "No," he calmly replies. "I have to take it back with us." "What? Why?" In the corner of his eye, Torinn looks at the two junior guild members floating by the doorway. He turns back to her with tired eyes. "It's complicated, Leah. I don't want you to worry, it's just something I have to do. Something that should have been taken care of a long time ago." He forces a slight smile. "It's probably nothing, just a piece of junk. But I have to be sure." Leah tilts and lifts her head while staring at him. In a softer, quieter tone, she says, "Torinn, please don't keep me in the dark. You can't protect me forever." With a laugh that's more of a sharp exhale, he tells her, "Watch me." He then brings his hands up to his face, rubbing his eyes, his brow, and running his fingers through his hair as he tries to blink away the dazed state of his mind. "Go. Keep searching the temple for any information or artifacts you can find. I'm gonna stay here and get this thing wrapped up and ready to go for when we leave." Leah closes her eyes for a moment, the disappointment showing clearly upon her face. After a second or two, she opens her eyes again and hands him what looks like a tiny ball of hard, bristly string from one of the pouches on her belt. She slowly leaves the room with the other adventurers, turns back to him one more time, and leaves him to his own devices. Once they've left, he turns back to stare at the crystal. How can you be here after everything we did? After all this time?" He said it would be impossible for another one to. He takes a deep breath. "It doesn't matter." He swims closer, takes his dagger off the floor, and very gingerly clears the rest of the rubble away. Once revealed, he uses the item she gave him. When he pulls at the strings, the entire ball comes undone with ease, forming a thick net of rope which he uses to haul the crystal away. As the expedition nears its end, Torinn joins the others just outside the temple's entrance, while dragging the crystal behind him. It takes the joint strength of him and 3 others to raise the crystal from the murky depths of the ruin, and all the while, his thoughts drift back to those last moments of the battle he had been forced to relive. And that's the end of Eventhrone Prologue, but don't worry, there are plenty more stories on the way, so make sure to subscribe or follow me on the podcasting platform of your choice, that way you don't miss out on the next one. Also, consider checking out my Patreon. As a member, you'll get daily posts from me about how the next episode or story is coming along, and you'll also be able to read the full version of each story I write way before they get narrated. If you have any feedback for me or my stories, then feel free to leave a comment. I'd love to hear what you have to say or how you think I can improve. Thanks again for watching, and I will see you all next time in Eventhrone: The Runaways.